To start to hear a lot about aliens on TV.
What the f is that?
Look at those. Look at 3 of them.
Holy sh*, guys.
It's just hovering in the sky.
Make sure you pay attention to your local UFO news.
Number 1. A UFO was found in Virginia on January 13, 1996, early in the morning. NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, detected something unusual on its radar. NORAD usually looks out for enemy missiles or aircraft. But that day, something unexpected appeared. A mysterious object had entered Earth's atmosphere near São Paulo, Brazil. NORAD could not identify what it was. They immediately contacted the Brazilian military. The object was about 200 miles northeast of São Paulo and falling quickly. The Brazilian Air Defense asked for more details, but NORAD only described it as unidentified. It was not a satellite, missile, or anything they could explain. Within minutes, the object crashed. Later, it was found near the town of Varginha. This event soon became Brazil's most famous UFO story. Number 2. What was the mysterious object? When the object finally crashed, it did not land quietly. People saw and heard a loud impact. Soon, many began to talk about a UFO. Witnesses said the object released white smoke. It did not seem to fly well, which may explain why it fell. A farmer named Orina said it flew over her farm and frightened her animals. Her husband, Uro, saw it too. He mentioned that it struggled in the air before disappearing over a nearby ridge. Another man, Carlos, was driving when he saw the object. He followed it until he saw it crash. He found that the wreckage was not ordinary. Pieces were scattered everywhere, and the air had a strong smell similar to ammonia or rotten eggs. Number 3. Military scrambled to secure the crash site after the object crashed. Military vehicles and soldiers arrived quickly. They set up a barrier around the crash site to keep people away. Some locals had already seen the wreckage. It was spread out across the area. Carlos even picked up a piece of the craft that felt like very light aluminum. He noticed that when he squeezed the metal, it returned to its original shape as soon as he let go. Others saw strange details as well. Before Carlos could look any further, the military arrived and ordered him to leave using strong force. Later, 2 men in dark suits approached him. They warned him not to talk about what he had seen. They said they knew about his family and where he lived, and they made it very clear that discussing the event was not allowed. Number 4. Aliens were spotted. Shortly after the crash. After the crash, people in Varginha began to report more odd sightings. At around 8 a.m. on the same day, reports emerged of small beings that did not look human. A college student said she saw a small, oily-skinned creature in an alley near a park. This creature was about 4 to 5 feet tall, had a large head, 3 long fingers, and no hair or clothes. People soon began to think these beings might have come from the object that fell from the sky. Shortly after that, 3 girls, Lillian, Valkyria, and Katia, were walking in an empty lot. They saw a creature hiding in the tall grass that looked very scared. It had smooth brown skin, a large head with 3 bumps on top, and very large red eyes. The girls felt they could almost sense the creature's fear and pain. After a moment, they got scared and ran home. Number 5. Hospital staff witness. Unusual creatures. When news of the UFO crash spread, reports from a local hospital in Varginha increased. Hospital staff said military personnel arrived with unusual patients. These beings were small and delicate with odd features. Their skin looked oily, and they had large heads with big red eyes, similar to what earlier witnesses described. The hospital staff was told to leave the area and not discuss what they saw. Even though secrecy was enforced, the staff quickly talked among themselves about how these beings did not seem human. One nurse claimed she saw the beings briefly before she was asked to leave. Number 6. Everything was way too suspicious. One very puzzling part of the event in Varginha was how quickly the Brazilian military became involved. Eyewitnesses reported that military personnel arrived almost immediately after the crash. They blocked the area and kept civilians away. Trucks and helicopters were also seen, which made many people think something big was going on. The Brazilian government later dismissed the idea of a UFO crash, saying there was no evidence of anything unusual. Officials also denied that any strange beings were seen. They suggested that people might have mistaken normal events for something extraordinary. In some cases, they even said that the creatures could have been ordinary animals or a local person covered in mud. This quick military response made many people suspect that the truth was being hidden. Number 7. The Kirtland Air Force Base sighting. On November 4, 1957, at about 10:45 p.m., 2 air traffic controllers at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico, saw something odd. R.M. Kaser and E.G. Brink noticed a white light moving across the airfield in a way they had not seen before. They used binoculars and saw an egg-shaped object about 15 to 20 feet tall with a white light at its bottom. The object hovered near the control tower for about 1 minute, then took off toward the east and climbed into the cloudy sky. Radar operators picked up a target in the area that showed unexpected high-speed movements. The Air Force later investigated the sighting under Project Blue Book. Their explanation was that it might have been a small plane whose pilot mistakenly tried to land at the base. However, the controllers were not convinced by this explanation. Number 8. The Tic-Tac UFO encounter. During training exercises in 2015, Navy pilots encountered a very unusual object in the sky. A video taken during this event later became part of a series that the Pentagon recognized as genuine. The video shows an object moving at very high speeds. It performed maneuvers that no known aircraft can do. The pilots can be heard talking about what they saw, and their voices show they were surprised and excited. In 2020, the Pentagon declassified that video and others. They wanted to make it clear that these were real events caught on camera. They also stated that the object in the videos remains unidentified, without offering any further explanation. Number 9. The O'Hare Airport sighting. This sighting took place on November 7, 2006, at around 4:15 p.m. at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. Around 12 United Airlines employees, including pilots and mechanics, saw a strange metallic craft. The object was saucer-shaped and hovered silently over Gate C-17 for about 5 minutes. It was described as dark gray and estimated to be between 6 and 24 feet wide. Then, suddenly, it shot straight up into the sky. It left a hole in the clouds that looked as if someone had punched a hole through the sky. Initially, the FAA explained this as a weather effect. However, a later investigation obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request showed that officials had discussed the sighting. No further investigation was conducted, and no explanation was found. Number 10. UFO in Manaus. In 1974, in Manaus, the capital of the Amazonas state, people started to notice unusual lights in the sky. Throughout the year, many reported seeing bright, colorful lights. Later, the lights began to come lower and hover over the city. Locals described the objects as disc-shaped, flashing different colors, and moving in ways that did not seem normal. It was not only about the lights. Some people said they felt strong heat and experienced anxiety and fear when the lights were nearby. A few even reported injuries that looked similar to burns. To this day, no one has been able to say what exactly happened. Number 11. The Val Johnson Incident. This event happened early on August 27, 1979, when Deputy Sheriff Val Johnson was patrolling a quiet highway near Stephen, Minnesota. At about 1:40 a.m., he noticed a bright light hovering above the ground. Curious, he drove toward the light. Suddenly, the light moved toward him very quickly. Johnson described the light as extremely bright and painful, and then he heard a noise that sounded like breaking glass. Shortly after, he lost consciousness. When Johnson woke up about 39 minutes later, he felt dazed and had a bump on his head. His eyes also felt burned. His patrol car was damaged. The windshield was shattered. One headlight was broken, and the antennas were bent sharply. Also, both his watch and the car's clock stopped for exactly 14 minutes. This incident drew attention from UFO investigators. While some thought it might have been staged, Johnson stood by his account, clearly confused by what happened. Number 12. The Tehran UFO Incident. On the morning of September 19, 1976, people in Tehran saw a bright object in the sky. Several civilians reported the sighting. The Iranian Air Force scrambled 2 F-4 Phantom jets to investigate. When the first jet got close, all its instruments and communications stopped working. The pilot had to pull back, and as soon as he did, his instruments worked normally again. A second jet, flown by Major Parviz Jafari, encountered similar problems. When his radar locked onto the object, which was roughly the size of a large airplane, his instruments malfunctioned, and even his weapon system stopped when he tried to fire. Major Jafari then saw a smaller object shoot from the main one. It moved toward his jet, slowed down, and landed gently on the ground. The next day, a search did not find anything unusual. Number 13. The Colares Flap Incident. The Colares UFO incident, also known as the Colares Flap, is one of the most talked about UFO events in Brazil. It took place in 1977 on the island of Colares in the Amazon River Delta. Over several months, locals reported strange, brightly lit objects in the sky. These lights were not ordinary. Some residents said the beams caused burn marks and puncture-like wounds, and people felt as if they had lost blood. Concerned for their safety, residents held vigils at night, lit fires, and set off fireworks to try to keep the objects away. The Brazilian Air Force launched an investigation called Operation Saucer. After 2 months, they could not find a clear explanation. Years later, Captain Uirangue, who led the investigation, talked about what had happened. Soon after that, he was found dead under mysterious circumstances. This has led many to believe that the UFOs might have been involved, and the event has inspired numerous conspiracy ideas. Number 14. The Allagash Abductions. In August 1976, 4 friends, Jim Weiner, Jack Weiner, Charles F. Bess, and Tom Reed, were camping and canoeing in the remote Allagash wilderness in Maine. On the night of August 27th, they saw a bright light in the sky. At first, they thought it was a regular aircraft. As the light came closer, however, it was completely silent and moved in a way that did not seem normal. The light hovered above them, and time seemed to stand still. Later, they recalled that they were taken aboard a spacecraft. They described meeting beings that looked like humans and undergoing examinations. Years later, the friends went through hypnosis, which brought out more details about their experience. A UFO researcher named Raymond Fowler investigated the case and even wrote a book about it. Number 15. The Voronezh Incident. On September 27, 1989, in the city of Voronezh, then in the Soviet Union, a group of children were playing football in a park when they saw something strange. They noticed a pink glow in the sky, Suddenly, a deep red ball about 3 meters across appeared. It hovered for a short time, then vanished and reappeared a few times. The children also said that a being with 3 eyes and wearing bronzy boots came out of the object. There were also 2 other human-like figures with it. One was taller than the other. This being left a circular mark on the ground that looked scorched. The children even reported seeing a small silver robot coming out from the object. The Soviet government took this report seriously and sent a scientific team to investigate. At first, the TASS news agency reported that they had found unusual rock material at the site. However, the material was later identified as hematite, a common mineral. Some radiation was also detected, but it was considered low and similar to other findings after the Chernobyl incident. Number 16. The Travis Walton abduction. The Travis Walton event is one of the most well-known cases of its kind. It occurred on November 5, 1975, in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest near Harbor, Arizona. Travis Walton was a 21-year-old forestry worker. He was with his crew, led by his future brother-in-law, Mike Rogers, when they saw a large glowing object hovering above the trees. Curious, Walton got out of the truck to take a look. Suddenly, a bright beam of light came down and lifted him up. His crew became very frightened and quickly drove away, thinking he would not be seen again. Walton was missing for 5 days before he reappeared. When he was found, he called his sister from a public phone and said he could not remember where he had been. Later, he said he had been aboard a spacecraft and received an examination from beings that looked human. His story was widely publicized, leading to the book The Walton Experience and the movie Fire in the Sky. Some people think the event might not have been real, and even Mike Rogers at one time suggested it could have been made up, although he later changed his mind. Number 17. The Shag Harbor Incident. The Shag Harbor event is a well-known UFO case in Canada. It happened on the night of October 4, 1967, in the small fishing village of Shag Harbor in Nova Scotia. At about 11:20 p.m., local residents saw a glowing object flying low over the harbor. Soon after, they heard a whistling sound, followed by a loud noise when the object hit the water. Local residents and police reacted quickly. Laurie Wickens and his friends were driving on Highway 3 when they saw the object fall into the water. They called the RCMP immediately. The RCMP then contacted the Rescue Coordination Center in Halifax. However, the object sank and disappeared before help could arrive. Search teams from nearby fishing boats, the Coast Guard, and the Canadian Navy checked the area. They did not find any debris or survivors. Over the years, further investigations were made. Some witnesses later said that there might have been more than one object and some activity beneath the water. Number 18. The Belgium Wave. The Belgian UFO wave, also known as the Belgian UFO flap, was a period of many sightings in Belgium from late 1989 to early 1990. It started on November 29, 1989, with reports of triangular-shaped objects near Eupen. Witnesses described these objects as very large and silent, while flying low with bright lights underneath. The situation reached a peak during the night of March 30th to 31st, 1990, when multiple reports of strange lights were received. The Belgian Air Force scrambled 2 F-16 jets to investigate. Radar at the Control Reporting Center in Glans detected something, but the pilots could not see any object even when the radar locked on. In all, around 2,000 sightings were reported by civilians, police, and military personnel. Number 19. The Cash-Landrum Incident. On December 29, 1980, in southeastern Texas near Dayton, Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and Vicky's 7-year-old grandson Colby were driving through the woods. They saw a bright, diamond-shaped object hovering above the trees. The sighting was so intense that Betty had to stop the car, and Vicky stepped out to get a closer look. They experienced a strong burst of heat and saw a blinding light. Vicky said she felt as if her face was burning. They also saw about 23 military helicopters, all Boeing CH-47 Chinooks, following the object. After the encounter, all three suffered serious health problems. Betty Cash experienced the worst effects, with blisters, nausea, and hair loss. Doctors compared her symptoms to radiation poisoning, and she was taken to the hospital. UFO researcher John Schuessler investigated the case, but official sources did not support the witnesses' claims. The trio even tried to take legal action to cover their medical expenses, but their efforts were largely ignored. Number 20. The Ariel School Incident. During a mid-morning break, 62 children aged between 6 and 12 were playing outside their school. They saw shiny, disc-shaped objects land in a nearby field. Some of the children said that beings dressed in black with large eyes stepped out of the objects and came close to them. The encounter lasted for about 15 minutes. After returning to class, the children eagerly told their teachers what they had seen. Unfortunately, many were not taken seriously. Later on, the story caught the attention of the media. BBC correspondent Tim Leach even visited the school. He said he found the accounts hard to believe compared to some of the intense events he had reported from other places. Harvard psychiatrist Dr. John Mack, who studied experiences like this, visited the school shortly after. He interviewed the children and asked them to draw what they remembered. Their drawings showed similar details: beings with large black eyes and fitted suits. Many of the children also mentioned that they received what seemed like mind-to-mind messages about environmental issues from these beings. Number 21. The Rendlesham Forest Incident. The Rendlesham Forest Incident began early on December 26, 1980, near RAF Woodbridge and RAF Bentwaters in Suffolk, England. U.S. Air Force personnel stationed at these bases saw unusual lights in the sky above Rendlesham Forest. Staff Sergeant John Burrows and Airman Jim Peniston went to check the lights. They reported seeing a triangular craft with bright lights hovering among the trees. Peniston said he got close enough to see that the craft was about 3 meters tall. It had strange symbols on its surface and was made of a smooth material. The next morning, they found unusual marks on the forest floor and measured higher than normal levels of radiation. The following day, on December 27th, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt led a larger group back into the forest. He recorded audio notes that mentioned a pulsating light and beams shining through the trees. Despite Halt's detailed notes and other evidence, the British Ministry of Defense dismissed the event. Number 22. The Phoenix Lights. On March 13, 1997, around 8 p.m., people in Phoenix saw a huge V-shaped craft silently moving across the sky. Witnesses described the craft as very large, about a mile wide, with lights along its edges. Later, at around 10 p.m., a line of lights was seen hovering and slowly descending behind the Sierra Estrella Mountains southwest of Phoenix. The U.S. Air Force later explained that these lights were simply flares dropped by A-10 Warthog jets during a training exercise at the Barry M. Goldwater Range. However, this explanation did not fully cover the initial sighting of the large V-shaped craft. Some skeptics, including James McGaha, suggested that the first sighting might have been military aircraft from Operation Snowbird in Tucson. Number 23. The Hudson Valley Sightings. From late 1982 through 1984, many people in New York and parts of Connecticut reported unusual objects in the sky. The reports began on New Year's Eve in 1982, when residents in Kent Cliffs saw a huge V-shaped craft moving silently overhead. Later, from March 1983 to June 1984, many reports described large triangular or boomerang-shaped objects about the size of a football field. Witnesses said these objects had bright lights and moved slowly without making any noise. In total, over 9,000 reports came from ordinary people, police, and military personnel. Some witnesses were unsure at first, but felt they needed to share their experience. UFO investigator and author Philip Imbrono looked into the case. He even said he saw the V-shaped craft himself. The story received a lot of local attention, even though it did not reach a national audience. 24. UFO crash. A new UFO video has gone viral and is getting a lot of attention online. It shows a shiny, disc-shaped object floating low over a countryside area with trees and open fields in the background. The object stays still in the air and doesn't seem to have any engines or wings. Its smooth, round shape has made many people wonder if it's not something made by humans. Some believe it could be proof of alien technology, while others think it might just be a scene from a movie or a computer-made image. Still, the video looks very clear, and the object stands out in a way that's hard to ignore. Whether it's real or fake, people are talking about it everywhere. It has once again raised questions about what's flying in our skies and if we really know everything that's out there. For now, no one knows what it is. So, what are your thoughts on these sightings? Let us know in the comments below and subscribe to our channel for more content.